What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikiPikaPapa, and tomorrow we're going to talk about my 10, I don't know, I wouldn't call them favorite cards, but 10 cards from the Scarlet and Violet era that I think when we look back 3, 5, I don't know, maybe even 10 years from now, these cards are going to be remembered really fondly, and they have some kind of intangibleness to them that I think is going to give them an opportunity to perform really well in the long run. It is still crazy early in the Scarlet and Violet era, so trying to get an understanding of what's going to be the best investment cards moving forward is a very hard thing to do, but we do have some incredible artwork in Scarlet and Violet, and we are starting to see some patterns form, and I'm really excited to share that video with you tomorrow. But as you know, I do an obnoxious amount of research. Like, I don't know how to do anything low-key or how to do anything halfway, so while I was doing this stupid amount of research on trying to identify 10 Scarlet and Violet cards that I think, you know, have a bright future, I came across some cards which made me scratch my head a little bit. And before we talk about these cards, I want to say this. It's not that I don't love these cards. I do love these cards. There's some amazing artwork. These cards are absolutely fire, and there's also some that I already own, so trust me, I am hoping that they do really well. But for whatever reason, as I was doing this research, maybe the price spiked too soon, maybe the gem rate is too high, maybe the PSA 10 population is through the roof. All of those things we're going to talk about as we look at these 5 cards, but these are some cards that gave me a little bit of a pause, and I was like, you know what? Before I talk about the 10 cards that I think are really on fire here in the Scarlet and Violet era, I should share what I'm finding with the PikiPika family and talk about 5 cards that have me scratching my head a little bit. Again, I think all of these cards are awesome, but they do, at least right now at their current valuations, I'm kind of like, I'm not sure. So why don't I do a video, throw it over to the PikiPika fam and see what they have to say. So with that in mentioning, let me say this. If you enjoy this type of content, we would love to have you be a member of the family. So hit that subscribe button. If you have questions or comments, as I said, drop them down below. And if you like what you see, give us a big old thumbs up. As I said, I do an obnoxious amount of research. I love to do it. It's my pleasure to do it. I hope you all enjoy it. And if you do, those 3 small things go a long way in helping me out. And I really appreciate it. So I thought the best way to start this video off would be to start off with the one card that I like the most. And I do. I absolutely love the artwork on this card. I love everything about this card. I actually love the set that this card comes from, and that is the Raging Bolt from Temporal Forces. I love the artwork on this card. I love Temporal Forces, right? You got Raging Bolt, you got Iron Crown, you got Morty's Conviction, you got Ghastly, like the list goes on and on and on. So I am a big believer in this, but what jumped off the page to me was this started off, you know, as a mid $50 card, then it popped up to, you know, $75. Then it started to work its way back down, and now it is just recently, I don't know if it was a buyout or I don't know if everybody just decided this artwork is fire, but this thing has popped up to over a $100 card seemingly overnight. Now, I do think a lot of people are seeing what's going on in the Sword and Shield space. They're seeing all of these crazy alt art prices, and I think people are maybe trying to understand what are going to be the big alt art cards from Scarlet and Violet? And instead of waiting until, you know, they're 2-3 years down the road, can I go ahead and get them in my collection now? Because look what's going on with all this awesome Sword and Shield stuff. Well, I don't know if that's the right approach. I don't know if that's the wrong approach, but I will tell you, seeing a card that is this new, up over the $100 mark when it started off in the $50 range, is just something you don't see every day, and it made me scratch my head a little bit. Now, there is not enough Raging Bolt EX cards that have been graded for me to give that individual card a gem rate, but I can tell you this. So far, there has been 8,351 cards from the Temporal Forces set that have been graded. Out of those 8,351 cards, 4,785 of them have been awarded a PSA 10 gem mint. So for all of the cards that have been submitted to PSA so far for Temporal Forces, they have a 57.2% gem rate. That is much higher than we have seen. If you look at Obsidian Flames, if you look at Paldea Evolved, heck, if you look at Scarlet and Violet Base, and even 151, all of those gem rates, the overall gem rates, are in the mid to high 30s. So the quality of the Temporal Forces set is much higher than we're used to seeing, which means in turn, inevitably, we're going to have probably more PSA 10s of this than we've had from any of those other sets that we've mentioned. Again, in tomorrow's video, we're going to talk about the way gem rate and PSA 10 population can lead to some, you know, a card almost feeling like iconic or like this legendary search and chase card. So the Raging Bolt right here, again, I think there's going to be a higher gem rate. I think that there's going to be a higher PSA 10 population. I do think the artwork is absolute fire. I do think that in the long run, this is going to be one of the best, if not the better cards from Temporal Forces, but I don't know if it's worthy of $105 right now. I know for me at least, I'm buying Temporal Forces booster boxes. I would much rather buy a booster box at $95 instead of buying this card at $105, but that's just me. It's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out, and I had to start off with this card simply because I do love it so much. Now, the next one that we're talking about is Pikachu with Gray Felt Hat. And I love a card with a story. I love this card because the story behind it is like none other. You talk about crashing the Pokemon Center website, shutting down the Van Gogh Museum, and I don't support either of that, but the fact of the matter is those things happened, right? Those are like in Pokemon Legends now. And this Pikachu with Gray Felt Hat card is the reason behind all of that. But the reason I have it on this list is look at those PSA 10 gem rates and the population. There is almost 22,000 of these in PSA 10 holders. I have never seen an ultra modern card with that many in a PSA 10 holder. I have not seen that. It is crazy. And not only that, there has been over 41,000 that have been submitted to grading with a 53.5% gem rate. I shared a video with you guys where I was at Collecticon Orlando last weekend, and I'm telling you, these Pikachu with Gray Felt Hat cards were everywhere. It was like a carbon copy. Every vendor booth that you went to had them in PSA 9s and PSA 10s. They were all over the place. It's still at $100 despite all of that. The raw card is still at $100. It's at $98.76 right now. And again, the story will give it some longevity no matter what. It's a Pikachu. Pikachu will give it some longevity. I really like the artwork. I think the artwork will give it some longevity. I just don't know if there's so many out there in circulation, if it's going to be able to maintain that price point. And again, this isn't just about price. It's kind of just about things that make me scratch my head, right? So the fact that this is, again, the PSA 10 gem rate so high, the PSA 10 population higher than I've ever seen, hard stop, like that's a definitive fact. I haven't seen a number of PSA 10s this high in an ultra modern card. Like all of those things kind of make me scratch my head and say, hey, listen, the raw card is still at $100. We will see what the future holds for Pikachu with Gray Felt Hat, but it is a very intriguing card and something worthy to be on this list and something to keep an eye on moving forward. Now, next card right here, okay? Now, the Groudon right here, I will say this. I think a lot of people are jumping on this card because of the Tyranitar in Paldea Evolved. So the Paldea Evolved Tyranitar card has been spiking in price, and that's because the gem rate of that card is so incredibly low. Now, Paradox Rift, this card might actually end up being the big chase card in Paradox Rift. So maybe people are piling in because they don't think that the Roaring Moon EX card is going to be able to, you know, be the big chase card. Instead, they think this one is going to be it. But the gem rate on this is way higher than we've seen in some of those earlier cards that have been spiking in price, like the Raichu, right? Like the Tyranitar that I've already mentioned. Those gem rates for both those cards are in the high teens. I'm not exaggerating. Wait till you see the video tomorrow. I think one of them's at an 18% gem rate. The other one's at a 16. Like that is paltry. That is non-existent. That is insanely low. But then this one, there's already 621 in PSA 10 holders. There's been 1,100 that have been sent for grading. It has a 54.7% gem rate. It's not even like the highest or the hardest card to pull. So I think there's going to be a lot of these in PSA 10s. I think that there's going to be plenty of these in the market. Paradox Rift is still brand spanking new in the terms of life cycle for a Pokemon set. So I think that there's going to be a lot more of these out there. The spike in price does kind of catch me off guard. It could be playability. I share very transparently with you guys. I'm on the collecting and investing side, so I don't have a finger on the pulse of what's going on in the game. So I don't know if all of a sudden this has some game mechanics which makes everybody want to go out there and want it. But I will say this, when I was looking at the prices, I was really trying to figure out the why behind this card, and I just couldn't do it, so it made me scratch my head. So I'm throwing it out to you guys here on this video. Let me know why you think that this card has gone all the way from, I don't know, a $22, $23 card all the way up to a $56 card ever since April of 2024. It's been fascinating to watch this card pop off, and I would love to hear your insights in the comments down below. Now, the next one right here, this one pains me. It pains me to put the Squirtle card on here because you know my youngest daughter is a huge Squirtle fan, which means we are huge Squirtle fans, and I have this in the collection. Obviously, when this one was being launched, I had to have it. She had to have it. We have it, and I think it's adorable, but it just doesn't have enough pizzazz for me. It doesn't strike me as the Pikachu with Gray Felt Hat. It doesn't strike me as, you know, some of these awesome Pokemon Center exclusive stamped promo cards that you find in these Pokemon Center Elite Trainer boxes. Like, I feel like they are much more rare. I feel like those Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes, they come in stock and then they sell out almost immediately. I don't know why this card just didn't do it for me, but it didn't. I put it on the list. And again, the PSA 10 gem rate, not that high, 41.4%. There's 675 of these out there in the PSA 10 holders, which isn't a huge number. I assume that we're not going to see a ton more, right? These came out. They didn't restock them. I don't think we'll ever see them again. But for whatever reason, I'm telling you right now, $90 for this Squirtle with the Pokemon Center exclusive stamp on it. I think it's got upside because it's from 151 and everything 151 seems to turn to fire. But this one, the art just doesn't do it for me. I don't know, the story behind it isn't that great for me. So that's why it's on the list. If you could talk me out of any card on this list and say, Pika Pika, you're wrong, you're an idiot, this Squirtle is absolutely iconic. This Squirtle is going to be remembered for forever simply because it was tied to the Ultra Premium Collection boxes that were being sold on it. You could talk me out of it. You honestly could. I don't have a hard conviction on this one, but just in the back of my mind, I'm like, this doesn't make a ton of sense to me, so that's why it's on here. And the final card on the list, again, I'm a huge Gengar fan, and so this card, I'm not going to say it pained me to have it on there, but the reality is this. Yes, Gengar is on the card, but here's what I will say about Morty's Conviction. It's still a Morty's card, right? It's still a trainer supporter card. It's got Morty on it. We all know that dude trainers don't tend to do so well in the long run. I don't like the fact that the print is right over Gengar's face. I don't think that the Gengar art on this one is particularly exciting or engaging, like it's a dude sipping a cup of coffee with Gengar chilling next to him. For me, there's just not enough there for me to believe that this card is a $43 card. And again, it hurts me to say that because you know how much I love Gengar. I will say this, I love Temporal Forces. I talked about it earlier in this video. I listed all of the reasons. I like the Ghastly card from an artwork perspective way, way more than this one. I know the Ghastly card is not as rare, but we've seen cards like the Magikarp, right? Like the Raichu, like the Tyranitar, like we've talked about these cards. They're not the rarest from the set, but again, rarity is only one part of the equation. You've got to have the demand, okay? So we will have to see how many of these get sent to PSA. We'll be able to get some gem rates here relatively soon. If the gem rate's low, maybe this card will surprise me and do well over the long run. But man, $43 for a Morty's Conviction card when basically what you're doing is you're buying this because it's got Gengar on it as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if it can handle the heat. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Ghastly take over the spot from this. I don't know, maybe 6-12 months down the road. It's going to be fascinating to watch. Now listen, as I said, these are the 5 cards that I'm not saying I don't believe in them. I'm not saying I don't like them. I actually love them all, but these are 5 cards where they're currently at right now made me scratch my head, and I can't wait to hear what everybody says down below. I know there's always strong opinions, and I love you all for it. And again, tomorrow we're going to be talking about the 10 cards from Scarlet and Violet that I have a lot of faith in, that I think are probably well positioned right now for where they're at. And listen, if you made it to the end of this video and you enjoy this type of content, hit that subscribe button. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. Questions or comments, drop them down below. I appreciate you more than I can say. I hope you have an epic one, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye.